Hello and welcome aboard WhalePod to another Genshin Impact video. I'm your Captain Whale, and today we're going to be taking on the 11th and 12th floors of the 3.4 Spiral Abyss. And boy, these are a doozy. So, since this is also going to serve as our Xiao and Alhaitham reviews, let's get right into those. We're going to start off with Xiao, because we are not going to be using Xiao in the Abyss. I tried using him on floor 11, and while he did work there, I feel like just a freeze comp would be simpler for the half I was using the Xiao team on. And on floor 12, I tried another Xiao team there as well, but they absolutely could not get through the brick wall known as Triple Magu Kenki in the second half of 12 too. And of course, on the first half of floor 12, you're going to want a aggravate or spread team to deal with the killer Doritos on the first half of 12-3. So, let's go over my Xiao's attributes. He has alright crit stats with 78.5% crit rate and 149.5% crit damage. None of my characters are going to be amazing as I get them to the point where they're good enough, and then just go from there. His total attack is going to be close to 2200 there. I think we're seeing 2182. Let's yes, 2182, since we scrolled down the bar enough to see what was behind there. 137% energy recharge, might even be a little low without a couple dedicated batteries. But that can be remedied by the only constellation that I would ever be tempted to go for on Xiao. And now our Xiao is running 46.6% animo damage. That is entirely from an animo damage cup. So that's how our Xiao's looking at. 78.5 and 149.5 with 137.6 energy recharge and your standard 46.6 elemental damage. He has more defense than I liked because, well, my only really operable set of Vermilion Hereafter ended up rolling a lot more defense than I would have liked. For weapon options on Xiao, I'd say Xiao actually has a pretty wide range of weapons he can use at his disposal due to polearms actually being pretty decent with having a lot of options for damage dealer weapons. Of course, Primordial Jade Wing Spear will match him best aesthetically, and it does have some crit rate to give some add-on to the crit rate he naturally gets through ascending, meaning you can focus on crit damage on your circlet and try and get the rest of your rate from substats. Another good option for him, though, is the Staff of Homa, as the crit damage does complement the crit rate he gets naturally quite nicely. However, you probably are going to want to use a crit rate circlet instead of a crit damage unless you have some insane substats that are close to overstatting your Xiao without the 22% from the Primordial Jade Winged Spear. As far as other 5 stars go, I think those are really the two 5 stars I'd put on Xiao. This isn't really helpful because he, or I don't know, maybe the energy recharge could be useful, but for the most part, stick to these two. I don't know, maybe running with a Zhong Li for a shield, you could make use of Vortex Vanquisher if you really have nothing else. As far as damage dealing 4-star options go, we do have the Battle Pass Deathmatch, which is, while it's not free to play, you can very well be a light spender and still get this weapon, as it is only $5 for the, well, $5 US for the standard edition of the paid Battle Pass. And the standard edition will still get you the Deathmatch. It just won't get you the name card, or the unique Serenity Pot furnishing, or the 5 extra fragile resins. As far as other DPS polearms go, you can also run with the completely free-to-play, as long as you're willing to use your Star Glitter on it, Black Cliff Pole, which is a crit damage weapon, so it complements his natural crit rate quite nicely. And while not useful against bosses, against mobs, the passive on a Black Cliff Pole can rack up some big damage. I don't know too much about Xiao, but seeing as he's a main DPS, I would honestly say that the White Tassel is too low on its main base attack to be much use for a main DPS, and when you're in his burst, the main strategy of Xiao is Pogo Stick, So you're not going to be benefiting from the normal attack damage that the White Tassel has. So that's probably still the only 3-star I'd put on him, but I'd still look for better options first. As far as other 4-stars besides the crit damage and crit rate, yeah, now that I look over the rest of them, Xiao's a bit narrower in weapons than I thought he was. I don't really play Xiao that often, but he is a Liyue character, so maybe if you really want to try a Lithic Spear out on someone, or don't have any of these 4, you can go ahead and give that a go on him. Pretty sure the Crescent Pike has some high damage, but a pretty low multiplier on that physical damage bonus, and Xiao doesn't really do physical damage anyway, he wants animo damage. So I'm just trying to think of any polearm here that would really be useful for a damaged Xiao. I mean, Elemental Mastery gives him bigger swirls with the Dragon's Bane, and pairing him with someone with a healer like Bennett or Kokomi will fulfill the Hydro or Pyro aura needed for it. But once again, I'll say Black Cliff is probably his best option, then the Deathmatch for, well, maybe Deathmatch then Black Cliff. It could kind of go either way for his 4 stars. But definitely, since it's a standard banner weapon, if you do happen to stumble across a Primordial Jade Wing Spear, put it on Xiao. I do think there are better units to use a Homa on if you have one, like Zhongli, who is going to be a very enticing pull if you already have Xiao. So yeah, all in all, I thought he'd be a little bit more versatile on his weapons. Although, ironically, if you are running Xiao with Zhongli, he can make better use of Zhongli's signature weapon than Zhongli ever could. For his artifacts, I'd say there are really only 2 ways to build Xiao effectively. Those are 2-piece 18% attack and 2-piece Viridescent Venerer, or 4-piece Vermilion Hereafter. Ironically, you could do 2-piece Viridescent Venerer, 2-piece Vermilion Hereafter when you're trying to transfer him over from 2-piece VV, 2-piece 18% to a full Vermilion, because the 2-piece is 18% attack. So with that, the Vermilion, if you're willing to farm a dungeon, that's pretty much useful for no one except for Xiao, because if we, let's go ahead and bring up the set filter here. The Vermilion Hereafter is paired up with Echoes of an Offering, and Echoes of an Offering is a terrible set due to no fault of how it plays, but due to the fault of how it was coded, to where if your ping is anything more than about 20, you encounter a bug where it doesn't proc when it's supposed to. And even if it didn't have that bug, it would still only really be useful for Ayato and maybe Yoimiya. So, if you're willing to farm one of the most niche domains out there, Vermilion Hereafter is Xiao's clear best in slot. Which, if Xiao is your husbando, like I know he is for a lot of people, that may be worth it to you. We'll go over his talents, then back to the couple things I do have to say about his constellations. Although I will not recommend any constellation I do not physically have, so I will not recommend any of Xiao's constellations. I will just say a few things about his 1, his 4, and his 6. Xiao needs all 3 of his talents leveled up in order to be doing really, well, not necessarily all 3. You really just want the normal attack. The normal attack should be a higher priority than the ultimate, because the ultimate is just a bonus multiplier applied on top of your normal attacks. And I do believe that, similar to how Yoimiya does more damage with a crowned normal attack and a level 1 skill than she does with both of them at 8, I believe Xiao will actually be similar, where crowning his normal attack will give you more return than even really leveling up Bane of All Evil. After all, it just, when you level it up, just increases the normal charge plunging attack damage bonus. So I would definitely go against the recommendation here, go against the crowd, level up normal attack first, then burst, and yeah, Lemniscotic Wind Cycling can be leveled up to your liking. It really only serves to funnel particles to Xiao. which he can't even generate when he's in his burst state. So, if you really want to funnel the energy, you need to use both to generate the particles, and then pop your burst while the particles are flying to you, which can add a little bit of extra trickiness to his playstyle. His Ascension 1 passive is while under the effects of his ultimate. All damage dealt by him is increased by 5%, increases by a further 5% for every 3 seconds the ability persists. Max bonus is 25% for the... Yeah, it has a 15-second duration. You hit max at 12 seconds past, so the last 3. So this is a little gradual over time boost to his damage while in his burst state. His A4 passive is using his skill, increases the damage of subsequent uses of his skill by 15%. Lasts for 7 seconds and has a maximum of 3 stacks. Gaining a new stack refreshes the effect's duration. The 3 stacks does connect to his constellations. And of course, he has a very useful exploration passive. It is only shared by Candace, so it's also pretty rare. Decreases climbing stamina consumption for your own party members by 20%. Not stackable passive talents that provide the exact same effect. Now, the few things I do want to say about his constellations is the one constellation I would consider pulling for is his Constellation 1, as it gives you a 3rd charge of his elemental skill. He can store up to 2 at Constellation 0, and this just gives you more skills, which is in turn more damage from his skills, more mobility in the overworld. I wouldn't necessarily say more particle generation, as it's a little difficult, or at least I'd assume it's a little difficult to catch all 3 after you've popped your burst, as by the time you're getting to the end of the 3rd one, the particles from the 1st charge have probably caught up to you. Now, the other thing I have to say is his Constellation 6 does completely change up his playstyle, but not only is it super expensive like all Constellation 6s, so do not go for it, but I will never, ever, 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 ever recommend any Constellation that in order to unlock you have to go through what is literally the worst Constellation, not just worst 5-star Constellation. In my opinion, this is the worst Constellation in the game. Transcension, Extinction of Suffering. When Xiao's HP falls below 50%, he gains a 100% defense bonus. Yeah. Imagine having Xiao as your favorite character, deciding you're going to C6 him no matter what, and then realizing in order to get that C6, you have to go through this absolute trash. That's not even like doubling your total defense. It just doubles your base defense. It just gives you an extra 799 defense when you're below half HP. We're actually going to be going over my Alhaitham stats after the Abyss, so let's get into it. I have already 36 starred for this cycle, so this is not my first impression. We are going to take a look at what the Blessing of the Abyssal Moon is here, though. Blessing of the Abyssal Moon, Thorn Twisted Moon. The Dendro Res and Electro Res will be decreased by 30% for opponents that are under the Quickened state. This effect will be removed 2 seconds after the Quickened state ends. So this is definitely pushing us towards using Alhaitham and Quicken Quicken, Aggravate, and or Spread. That already is going to be stacking against our Xiao. And here in floor 11, where we're going to be starting off, let's take a look at the enemy rosters for this floor. This is going to be a monument target defense. These Lawachurls and Midachurls cannot be sucked as easily with Animo crowd control, so I feel like going for a freeze here would be a better way to keep them away from the monument. However, here, these Eremites and Treasure Hoarders, just use a Venti or a Kazuha or something, and they'll get cleaned right up. In the second chamber, the second half is the slowest second half I've ever seen. It's 2 enemies in 2 waves. The first wave is the Abyss Herald, and then the second wave is the Flying Serpent. And it might just be because I was jamming in a cryo unit to a Xiao team where normally you'd want Bennett there. But I was I was not having a fun time on that second chamber, and good thing it's still longer than 300 seconds. So you can have 5 minutes remaining and still 3-star here. Because, hoo boy, the Flying Serpent doesn't even spawn in until the Abyss Herald's gone. So yeah, that was not fun. Here, it's just, your swirls are going to have fun going to town on all these. From the, it's probably going to be Electro Swirls, because you're probably bringing a Aggravate or Spread team to take advantage of the Abyssal Moon here. And also in Chamber 3, the Electro Regisvine is weak to Cryo, so that's another reason why you probably do want a Freeze team on the second half. Freeze just absolutely shreds the Abyss Herald Wicked Torrents. Cryo itself is super effective against the Electro Regisvine. And Freeze is probably a more reliable crowd control strategy for the big hilly boys than Anemo is. And all characters in the party gain a 75% Dendro damage bonus, giving us an even more of an incentive to use Alhaitham here. So now, let's do just that and use Alhaitham. We're going to bring Alhaitham, along with Shinobu, Kazuha, and for that double Dendro, because boy does Alhaitham need a Dendro battery, like every enemy in this game needs a few extra holes in their head, we're going to be bringing Nahida. And on the second half, instead of our Xiao team, which was Xiao, Jean, Farazan, and Ayaka to freeze things solid, we have ourselves, we're just going to bring a more standard freeze comp of Ayaka, Cocafish, Venti, and Shenhe. Got a little freaked out while we were putting those teams together there because my connection between my monitor and my PC has not been the best. So when I saw that monitor suddenly wig out and then reboot, I thought, oh, maybe we actually lost power. I'm currently caught in the middle of this Midwestern ice storm we're getting here, and reaching as far south as South Central Texas.
The scribe's work is simple, which is exactly what...
The bond is strong.
New punching bag.
Everyone hold hands.
Yes, everyone, hold hands.
One with nature, as one with wind and cloud. Into the wind. Flicker.
We're already cutting our way through these guys.
Stand with me.
Suffocate. One with nature. Fallen leaves adorn my night. The wind knows me.
Out of my way. The Temple of Wisdom.
Ah, we got one of the biggest ones here now.
Dissipate.
Into the wind. As one with wind and cloud. The wind knows me. Here you are.
His crocodile there stunned him nicely for us. Or I should say, us killing his crocodile stunned him nicely for us.
Think you can get away? Do your master's bidding.
Now we just got the Lawa Churl here.
Embrace the ice.
We'll let her rip here.
My will embodied. Whirling snow.
And that takes care of that floor very nicely. Continuing to floor 11, chamber 2. Let's see. Energy recharge is always helpful.
Everyone hold hands.
One with nature.
Group them all nicely.
The birds call.
Shinobu is also helping this team out on the energy recharge front with having Zephos Moonlight available to her.
Stand with me.
wind knows me.
Suck all these guys in.
Lightning, terrified! Hey! Make yourselves a move!
That hurts. Into the wind.
And that takes care of those guys. His second half is the slow chamber.
Bow before the abyss.
Let's move out.
This is going to be
Time for
useless here,
takeoff.
but we'll fire it off anyway.
Brace yourselves.
Manifest! Take flight!
Whirling snow! Let's play! Allow
Coca
me.
Fish can put hers down again. Now we gotta let him unfreeze, unfortunately.
Take flight! Sakura swirl!
Let's move out.
And now
your
Shenhe
form.
there.
Cryo incarnate! My apologies!
We're also getting our first look at the new Ayaka skin here. One down.
Shall rise.
Obey!
Think you can get away?
Ah, he can be sort of pulled, I guess.
Take flight! My apologies! Kamisato art! Sometsu!
These guys also hit real hard, are really hard to knock around themselves.
Transfiguration!
Time for takeoff. I wouldn't brace yourselves.
Knock him down there.
Whirling snow!
Much quicker for that one there. Still probably my least favorite Abyss Chamber in the history of Abyss Chambers. It just feels so empty and such a waste of this big battlefield. Now. I remember this one being a little trolly, actually.
Fallen leaves.
The Pyro and Electro Slimes here creating some overloads with each other. It definitely keeps you from grouping nicely right off the rip like that.
Let's get down to business.
Now, Kazuha.
As one with wind and cloud.
I want to take care of the king.
Well, we're gonna restart this chamber. I do feel like we'll need more than just Shinobu going down there to take care of this. I hate how they don't reset your cooldowns.
Stand with me!
The wind knows me. Fallen leaves. Adorn my night. Into the wind.
Hey!
Out of my way!
One with nature.
And group them all up.
Clouds high.
Pop this here.
Calm.
Dissipate! The Temple of Wisdom! Everyone hold hands!
The wind knows me. Flicker.
Ah, you little turd. But it doesn't matter. Big plant time.
Rest and reave it!
My will embodied! Do your master's bidding!
Right, Ayaka. Break that down, and then
My apologies!
Plant Gang is down, so let's
Allow me!
Let her rip.
Go for a swirl. Take your true form, Cryo Incarnate.
And absolutely thrash this plant gang in well less than the time needed. So, this fudgin' second chamber. The consecrated red vulture and consecrated scorpion practically turned the second wave of the first half basically into like Dark Souls or Elden Ring, because they will, if you get hit by both of their plunge or burrowing attack in succession, it will one-shot you. And then we have the Magu Kenki, the triple kinky on the second half. So, how are we going to deal with this? Well, first half, we're going to use the exact same team we just used first half of the last floor. Alhaitham, Shinobu, Kazuha, and Nahida. Nahida also serves an extra stealth purpose against the algorithm of semi and transient matrix of Overseer Dorito network. In that when it cloaks, as this one will cloak immediately on you, if it's marked by Nahida, you will be able to tell where the actual enemy is by the mark, and you can stun it a lot quicker by hitting the actual cloaked enemy with Electro and Dendro. On the back half, it would be nice to have some Animo to deal with grouping all these Eremites, but we'll deal somehow, I guess. Because we're not going to be bringing any Animo. The way I found was to muscle through this with the alternate Ito team. Ito, Zhang Li, Yai Miko, and he's pretty far down the list because I've leveled up a lot of characters to 90. Benny Boy. Now we have an effective this floor, effective this chamber, effective this floor. We don't really have anyone who benefits from max HP with us right now, so we're gonna do... I don't like it, but we're gonna do this sprint thing.
Our bond is strong.
This makes my life so stars. Sharing my knowledge.
Here you are.
This one, at least Dendro is really good at clearing away these Electro auras.
Scatter.
Committed to memory.
Into the wind. Flicker.
Alright. We just gotta... This floor is just a lot, and I mean a lot of chunk.
Lightning, terrify.
Like, a ridiculous amount of chunk on this floor. And they all spawn one at a time. It's almost as bad as that Herald and Snake.
Stand with me.
The wind knows me.
Committed to memory. Sharing my knowledge.
Here you are.
One with nature. Fallen leaves. Adorn my...
I'll settle this.
Scatter.
Oh, we might have trouble here. Well, we would if it weren't for Ito being a baller. Oh yeah, these guys. I forgot about these clowns.
Everybody stand back.
Right now, emerge.
We're gonna open with
I'm
this.
always watching.
The Yai Miko
Right now.
nuke.
Emerge.
Let's roll. It's showtime. Attaboy.
Already one of these Abyss Mages in the hurt zone.
It's dream work.
Order guide you.
Let's light it up.
Right here. Right now.
About to have a second one in the pain train. Unga bunga for the win!
Emerge. Nothing lasts forever.
Going in.
Wish I had that Bennett burst just a little bit sooner.
Now you're testing my patience.
Unga Bunga for the win! And that's how you brute force your way through an otherwise difficult abyss. But now, we might have to reset a couple times on here because... Who boy is the...
Hey! Make yourselves a room!
Into the wind.
Group everything together.
Here you are.
Focus on big boy here. And here's the murder birds.
Stand with me!
We did our dodges excellently here.
Sharing my knowledge!
It's fine. The wind knows me. Clouds hide. The birds call.
Yeah, this is going for us.
Lightning terrified! Dissipate!
A process of elimination.
Get as much big damage as we can going on these guys. Him being down is going to make the remainder here a lot simpler. And that's going to hopefully give us plenty of time. 2 minutes for the triple kinky.
Right
For the
now,
kink,
emerge.
for the
Right here.
kenklicates, or the kenki triplicates, or whatever you want to call them.
This is order.
Teamwork is dreamwork!
It's showtime.
Kato, show him why you're the undisputed Unga Bunga champion of not just Inazuma, but Teyvat.
Catch me. Let's go. Oh. Ha! I will have order.
Drop a rock on him, Zhang.
Right now. Right here. Right now. Huh? Everybody stand back!
There! Oh, coming through.
All right, Galloping Frost, take your Walloping Frost here.
Let's roll.
And Mask of Terror is terrorizing us no longer. Into the home stretch here. Really happy we were able to get through that second chamber relatively unscathed. Most important thing we can do here,
I'll settle this.
make sure we have that mark on our boy here. Because he is already going
Storm
invisible.
my night. One with nature.
So let's, after that mark,
Dissipate!
and shock it down.
Our bond is strong! Out of my way!
All right, Nahida.
Grow!
It's going to do a couple attacks here now and then go right back into its other.
Helpful.
Oh, right back into its cloaked form again.
Commit it to memory! Yeah.
Into the wind.
Yep, it's cloaking again.
Clouds high. The bird.
Dissipate!
One with nature.
So let's go
Flicker.
zap him down again.
A process of elimination.
There we go. Not bad at all. Certainly a lot faster than trying to whack your way through all those different gears and pieces.
You are not welcome here. This is order.
Dong Burst to start things off here.
Teamwork is dreamwork!
Attaboy! It's showtime!
Unga Bunga.
I'm getting sick of this.
Cha! Let's
Coming
roll!
as target practice. Dance with me.
Raise the storm!
I will have order.
Dong Burst here again.
Right here. Emerge. Right here. Huh? I'm going in! A sight to
Miko
behold.
Burst here.
Attaboy! Oni coming through!
Goodbye. But we'll meet again. Think
Stabilize.
fast.
This is order.
I'd rather put you on stone.
Attaboy!
Guess what we
Who
need,
wants
Ushi?
some of this?
And unga, bunga, unga, bunga, unga, bunga.
The curtain.
And that is floor 11 and floor 12 of the Spiral Abyss. I know I typically do use more wailed out sets, so these might not exactly be replicable by you, but it is possible. I'm sure with optimally built teams, like free-to-play God level optimally built teams, you could replicate similar performances with cheaper units. But I have these wailed units, so I'm going to use these wailed units. And once again, Ito is the king of the Abyss. Now, let's dissect that Alhaitham a little bit here.
Wait.
We have 1491 attack, more defense than we'd like, less EM than we'd like. But what's new with the artifact system? Giving you exactly what you don't want, am I right? We do have 62.3% crit rate, a lot lower than our Xiao, and pretty comparable crit damage. Because despite having an amazing crit damage stat on our weapon, we have rolled terribly when it comes to getting crit damage on our artifacts. In fact, only one piece rolled any to begin with. Our energy recharge is in the accepted range of 130 to 150%, even if barely, for an Alhaitham that has double Dendro in the party. If you are running Alhaitham as the only Dendro in the party, you're going to want in the 160 to 200 range, maybe even 180 to 100 range. For Alhaitham's weapon, Light of Foliar Incision is far and away his best in slot, but a very close contender to that as well is the Primordial Jade Cutter. You're just swapping around the massive crit damage stat for the massive crit rate stat, and you're swapping around a cool elemental mastery based passive for just a more generic, just more attack passive in the line of something like Staff of Homa. But without Homa's Broken Rider, of when you're under half health, it gets even more busted. As far as other 5-star weapons aside from that, Alhaitham does like a lot of elemental mastery, so Freedom Sworn could be a good weapon for even a DPS Alhaitham. You just need to lean more heavily into crit stats on your artifacts. And as such, it could take you longer to get an acceptable artifact set for a Freedom Sworn Alhaitham. Moving into 4 stars of the Zephos Moonlight, which he is featured as using in the Sumeru Archon quest, is also a really good weapon on him, and I feel like it fits him aesthetically better than Foliar does. It is an elemental mastery weapon and can give him some support capabilities, as his elemental mastery will provide a EM, his EM will provide an ER boost to the rest of the party. Mine is Refinement 5, so of course I have the double what a Refinement 1 is going to be, but it's still a pretty decent boost to everyone's energy recharge and is not to be scoffed at. The Iron Sting is identical in stats to the Zephos Moonlight, and while it might not blend as nicely with Alhaitham's look as the Moonlight does, it is a more personal damage-oriented weapon than the Moonlight. Aside from that, you could replace his Foliar Incision with something like a Blackcliff Longsword, which also has crit damage, and is completely free to play as long as you're willing to use your Star Glitter on it. Or you could go for the less free to play, but of Battle Pass weapon of the Black Sword as a crit stat stick if you do not have either the Jade Cutter or Foliar as well. As, like I said, with the Deathmatch, the standard version of the paid Battle Pass is only $5 US, so it would definitely not even put you into Dolphin territory. In fact, there's an entire category of spending below even low spenders for players who only spend on the game for the $5 Battle Pass and the Welkin Moon every month, known as Welkin Battle Pass players. So if you are at least a Welkin Battle Pass, the Black Sword could be a decent substitute for either the Jade Cutter or the Light of Foliar Incision, but you also do just have the craftable Elemental Mastery Iron Sting, or if you do feel like going on a weapon banner where Zephos' Moonlight is featured, there is that as well. I was lucky with getting this R5 Zephos Moonlight in that it happened to be on a weapon banner that I was going for R5 of one of the main weapons. That would be Key of Kaj Nasut. Anyway, Key is terrible on Alhaitham, but the weapon that came along with it could be decent for him. Now, I don't necessarily think Alhaitham has too good a support capabilities, so there's just one more weapon I'm going to touch up on. And that is not Black Iron Sword, Dark Iron Sword, as it has been updated to also include Quicken, Aggravate, and Hyper Bloom, as well as the previous Electro reactions. So, above all else, if all these other options don't work out for you, well, you can always use this one Dark Iron Sword. Just make sure not to fodder it already, because it's just a random 3-star weapon that you get from just a random merchant in Leah Harbor. So you might be tempted to fodder it just because it's a 3-star weapon and not realize its uniqueness. It is Elemental Mastery substatted. It's going to be less than any 4-star EM substat. And I guess I should also give a mention here to the Harbinger of Dawn, because hoo boy, gives him a lot of crit stats. 28 crit rate at Refinement Rank 5, which is very easy to pull off for even a free-to-play player. You're going to be pulling on the gacha and getting a ton of 3-stars, and this is a gacha 3-star. And being crit damage main stat, which is the same as his signature weapon, does bode well for the Harbinger of Dawn as well. And if you're running him on a Hyper Bloom team with either Shinobu or Kokomi, or running him on a spread team with Shinobu as your Electro Applicator, the Harbinger of Dawn will likely always be above its 90% HP threshold to get that massive 14% at Refinement 1, 28% at Refinement 5 crit rate bonus. That's all I have to say about Alhaitham's weapons. I've said artifacts before. We're going to pull up the sets again here. The two sets you're going to want to consider for Alhaitham are Gilded Dreams and Deepwood Memories. Alhaitham pretty much always wants to have will always want Gilded Dreams unless you do not have a Deepwood somewhere else on your team. In that case, you can run Deepwood on Alhaitham. I could have done things more optimally with putting either Alhaitham or Nahida into a Deepwood set, but I didn't want to have to fiddle around with that afterwards, as both were on Gilded Dreams still. Once again, I would really only recommend these two setups for Alhaitham. Prioritize Gilded Dreams, but if you don't have another Deepwood user, put him on Deepwood. And now, we'll go over his constellations a little later. First, his talents. Stats are still being tabulated on our brand new boy here, but I will say these two should be your priorities, seeing as this provides... I don't really know... okay, so yeah, actually I do really know how this works. Those 3 numbers there for the mirror attack projections, 1, 2, and 3, will only be leveled up by this, so you do kind of want to level them up equally, unlike Xiao, where you want to level up normal attack first, then burst, as these numbers are completely unrelated to these numbers, and these numbers are completely unrelated to these numbers, so in order to maximize his potential, I would recommend leveling both of them up equally. As for his burst, it is a good amount of damage, but his primary purpose, at least for below Constellation 6 Alhaitham, is just to generate 3 mirrors when he has none. The basic attack only has 4 instances, so it's not all that damaging anyway, but it can just completely refill his mirrors when he runs out, or be used right at the start for a little burst of damage and an immediate 3 mirrors. So leveled up according to how much you want that little burst of damage to actually deal. His Ascension 1 passive causes his plunging and charge attack hits to generate a Chisel Light Mirror once every 12 seconds. This is typically, when you're using his E, how you get your 3rd mirror. You use your E to get the first 2 because it will generate 2 if he does not already have any, but if he has some already, it will only generate 1. So you typically use his E, maybe you angle his E upward a little bit with his held variant so you can get a plunge attack off and to get 3 pretty much immediately, or once you've finished rushing, you just use a charge attack or something to get your third mirror. And here's where the Elemental Mastery scaling comes in on him with his A4 passive. Each point of Alhaitham's Elemental Mastery will increase the damage dealt by projection attacks and particular field fetters of phenomena, his E and his burst, by 0.1%. The damage of both aforementioned abilities can be increased by a maximum of 100% this way. With it being 0.1% per point, that means you need 1,000 Elemental Mastery on him to max him out. I am unclear as to whether a crit Dendro EM build is more damage on him than a EM build when it comes to this passive. Maybe someone like Mogo will eventually test that out, I don't know. As for his exploration passive here, it is identical to Ayaka's, so if you know what that does, then you know what this will do for you. But if you don't, it means when you're crafting weapon ascension materials at the crafting bench, there's a 1 in 10 chance that you will get 2 instead of 1. This is rolled individually for each item crafted, and not as a all or nothing for a group crafting. So if you're rolling 10, you will on average get 11. And now, the one thing I am going to say about Alhaitham's constellations is, while I don't recommend any of them, because once again, I will not recommend any constellation I don't own, Alhaitham's Constellation 6 makes it so his ultimate will generate 3 mirrors, no matter how many mirrors are present when he uses it. So even if you still have all 3 mirrors, Alhaitham will generate 3 in return. And it also boosts his crit rate and crit damage when he generates excess mirrors. So in other words, when he generates a mirror while he already has 3. It's a sizable boost with 70% crit damage and 10% crit rate, but not worth the cost. The most interesting thing about it is it changes up his playstyle by making it so his burst will always refund 3 mirrors. However, the other thing about his constellations is while it's not as severe as some characters, Alhaitham does feel a little incomplete without his Constellation 1. I'm not going to go out of my way to try and get it. I want to save my guarantee I have on the character banner to make getting the first out of 7 copies of Dia easier than it would normally be. But his first constellation can drastically reduce the cooldown of his E, allowing for more fluid mirror up times. By every time a follow-up attack from his mirrors connects, it will reduce the cooldown of his E by 1.2 seconds. It can be triggered once a second. I can see that shaving off maybe 3, 4, or even like 5, maybe. No. It's always going to be like less than 5 seconds more than 3 seconds, but I could see it proccing maybe 3 to 4 times per like full 3 mirror infusion, knocking off like 4.8 seconds from the cooldown. So that can be useful. Like I said, it's not as severe as some characters who do really feel incomplete without a Constellation 1, but it is rare for a 5-star to give that for you. And there you have it. There's my Floras 11 and 12 of the Spiral Abyss and my reviews of Alhaitham and Shao. I do thank you all for watching WhalePod, and I do hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like the video and sub to the channel if you have not done either of those already. And as always, comments are welcome down below.
Navigating the world is a whole lot easier with a few different identities to choose from. Need me to come up with some for you?
Sure, Yelan, lay 'em on me. Now, with that said and done, I hope y'all are having fantastic days, WhalePod. Make sure to stay cool, stay classy, and most importantly, stay healthy. But until next time, this is Captain Whale, signing off.